What if it were possible to live effortlessly with an attitude of love and compassion for yourself and for others? What if you could hold on to thoughts and feelings so positive that only good would be drawn into your life? What if you could clear out the debris of the past and any fears about the future so thoroughly that spirit could shine from within you and light up the world? That is the point of spiritual growth. So writes Unity Minister Ellen Davenport in her book, The 5 Principles. What an awesome possibility, the idea that we might be able to live effortlessly with love and compassion for ourselves and for those around us. How exciting to consider that we might add light to the world. How do we get there? Well, in 1989, Connie Fillmore, an ordained Unity minister herself and the great-granddaughter of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, who are the co-founders of Unity, Connie was asked to summarize Unity's teachings in an article that was to be written for the Daily Word magazine. The article was incorporated into a booklet to be used as a month-long study of Unity's basic teachings. And so she considered the teachings of Unity and condensed them into 5 essential points, which we now refer to as the 5 principles of Unity. Taken together, these principles offer the promise of an awareness of God. They offer a promise of an awareness of our own oneness with each other, our own oneness with God, a connection that we have with each other and with God. The principles offer insights into how we can interpret our life experiences in a way that is full and abundant. And they offer a feedback loop for us to keep us aligned and in the flow of divine energy and abundant life. My simplified way of remembering these 5 principles of Unity is captured in the song set to the tune of Happy Birthday. And forgive my singing, but it goes like this. One universal power, a network of all ideas lead to experiences. Take time to be still. You'll live in peace. Today, we will look at the first of the 5 principles of Unity. And in the following weeks, we'll build on that foundation to explore each of the 5 principles. So the first principle is one universal power, also known as, in writing, God is absolute good, everywhere present. We can expand this to say, there is one presence and one power in my life and in the universe, God. We can shorten it to say, God is all, or my language, there is no spot that God is not. Now, some of us here may have some resistance to the word God. We may have been raised with the concept of an angry God, a guy, always a guy, sitting up in heaven with a beard and long robes and a clipboard, keeping track of our every movement and demanding unending devotion from us, punishing us if we are unworthy or if we are not obedient enough. And I am reminded of a skit in the Monty Python movie, The Meaning of Life, where students are in church and they are repeating after the minister, or I think it was the principal of the school, but something to the effect of, "Oh God, ooh, you are so big, so absolutely huge. We're all really impressed down here, I can tell you." Well, Monty Python certainly takes things to an extreme that seems ridiculous. And yet many of us grew up with that Old Testament God where we had to essentially say, "Oh God, we're really impressed down here, I can tell you." That God of punishing and keeping score, of taking sides, of winning battles for the side that he favors, and causing awful things to happen to those who don't show enough obedience. This principle of one universal power, invites us to expand our view of God to be bigger than that. Instead of God being this limited Santa Claus-like creature is not the right word. Instead of God being this Santa Claus-like being who sees you when you're sleeping and knows when you're awake, so you better be good, or you're going to get a lump of coal. Can we work to wrap our heads around the idea that there is no spot that God is not, and that we don't need to be obedient to God for God to be present in our lives? Well, when we say God is all, what does that mean? Across the planet, God is called and understood by many names, many faces, and we speak about that every week as part of our opening prayer. God, Spirit, Allah, Shiva, Mother, Father, Goddess, Spirit, Creator, Universal Energy, Divine Intelligence, the Force, Divine Mind, to name just a few. Regardless, though, of the name that we may have for the God of our understanding, let us consider the idea that there is only one power that encompasses all. And that power is all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present, omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. Omni meaning all. That means that the only force that operates in this universe, as well as in our lives, is a force that is both potential and actual, both visible and invisible. This force, this creative energy, is always present, always at work, moving in and out of form. God, creative energy. In the book The Secret, James Ray says, and I quote, "You go to a quantum physicist and you say, 'What creates the world?' And he or she will say, 'Energy.' Well, describe energy. Okay, it can never be created or destroyed. It always was, always has been. Everything that ever existed always exists. It's moving through form and out of form." You go to a theologian and ask, "What created the universe?" And he or she will say, "God." Okay, describe God. Always was, always has been, never can be created or destroyed, all that ever was, always will be, always moving into form, through form, and out of form. You see, it's the same description, just different terminology. End quote. So says James Ray in the book, The Secret. Now, this concept that God is all is not unique to unity. The Bhagavad Gita refers to God. By me is this entire universe pervaded. All things are in me and I in them. Know that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests in the sky, all created beings rest in me. I am the father, the mother, the supporter, and the grandsire of the universe. Isn't that beautiful? It's just so poetic. The supporter, the grandsire of the universe. My favorite definition of God, my personal definition of God, is actually drawn from Star Wars and the Force. When Yoda describes the Force in the following way: it is the energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, penetrates us, it binds the universe together. The Force is this and more. It cannot be fully described with words. And then later, Yoda again refers to the Force as the source of power. Quote, life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. End quote. God energy surrounds us and binds us. God is both within us and all around us. Not out there only, separate from us, but rather out there and, as Jesus said, one with us. He said, the Father and I are one. And as Paul said, we live and move and have our being in God. This can be a difficult concept to master because we are so used to the idea of a God out there that we pray to out there that it is hard to wrap our heads around the idea that God is both external to us and as well part of us. But if it is true that there is no spot that God is not, then that includes all of us. God isn't in all things because that would imply that there is a place that God is not. Rather, God is all things. God is all things. All things are God. Everything is God. By whatever the God of your understanding, call it any one of these names, there is one power. Consider the consequences. If we could adopt this idea that there is one universal power, how would that impact our life and our world right now? Well, first, there would be less tendency to think in terms of my God is better than your God. Think for a moment of the harm that has been done in the name of my God is better than your God. My God is bigger than your God. My God is the right one and yours is not. There have been individuals, cities, towns, countries harassed and tried and sometimes executed as a result of this belief that My way is the right way. And so yours must be wrong. There have been families who have cut off family members because of these differences in belief. Man-made wars on both the individual level, individual to individual, as well as country level. Man-made wars on a grand scale, all with the intention to force people to change their beliefs, all in the name of God. So much harm has been done in the name of God, in the name of love, in the name of, I'm going to save you because my way is the right way. Did you know, have you considered that Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, which was only born in the 7th century after Jesus, did you ever consider that all three of these major world religions all serve and worship the God of Abraham? They all worship the same God. And yet, we find all of these reasons to find differences. Imagine if we could believe that there is only one universal power. Every culture has a God concept. That is because we humans recognize that there is something greater than we can understand that is at work in the universe and in our lives. As Yoda said, the force cannot be explained. And they are all different names for the same power. If we could believe that there is no spot that God is not, that it is one universal power, then we would increase our acceptance of all the different paths of understanding. And I have this cartoon-like image in my imagination of all the different God identities created by man, sitting up in the ether somewhere, in the heavens somewhere, having tea, sipping down and looking down at us humans and shaking their heads and saying to each other, they still don't get it. We still don't get it. Imagine the freedom that could come from accepting that there is one power. No religious warfare, no dogmatic difference that insists on one right way. Another consideration of this idea is that there would be no favoritism then in God. Think back to what I just spoke about, these wars that have been perpetrated across the globe. And often we see in movies how one side will kneel down and pray to God for deliverance, for success, for the ability to vanquish our enemy. Cut screen to the other side, to the other group, and they are also on their knees praying to God, asking for exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Both sides of a conflict, each praying to different versions of the same God, each asking God to be with them, to show them favor by giving them the victory. If you think of it from that point of view, it seems ludicrous. There is no spot that God is not. God is all of it. And God does not bless one group while looking less favorably on another group. No right, no wrong, no punishment. God is bigger than Santa Claus. Jesus reminds us of this in Matthew, where we are told that the Father causes his sun to rain, his rain to fall on the just and the unjust, and the sun to shine on the righteous and the unrighteous. God is all of it. And that leads to the next point, which is that it is all included. The righteous and the unrighteous, the just and the unjust, the good and the not so good. Life isn't a contract, as many people have discovered. Just because we are devoutly religious doesn't mean that we are immune to heartache and hurt. It doesn't mean that sad things won't happen to us. We don't have to be obedient in a contract where, if I do this, then this is not going to happen to me. No. And what that frees us from is the thinking of, I must have done something wrong because my husband is asking for a divorce. I've just lost my job. I've just been in a car accident. I've just received a horrible diagnosis. No. That just means that you're part of the human race and living. And all of those unpleasant things are part of it. That's what happens in life. And so we free ourselves from the I should have, if only I was to, and all of those feelings and messages that we give ourselves about what we should have done, could have done, ought to have done to please God and appease God, so that none of these horrible things would happen to us, but they would only happen to the other people who were less deserving. The sun shines on the just. No, the rain falls on the just and the unjust. The sun shines on the righteous and the unrighteous. We are exposed in life to all of it. And then another implication of leaning into this idea that there is no spot that God is not, that there is only one universal power, is that there is no God on one side and the devil on the other in competition with each other. I think that at times there is the good ear and the not so good ear talking to us, saying, the higher path would be this, and the more human path or the lesser path would be this. These are your options. But in the grand scheme of things, and like after death, there is no such thing as the devil and God working in competition with each other. And I am reminded of a song by Chris de Burgh called Spanish Train. And in that story, in that song, which is of course a story, Chris de Burgh talks about God and the devil on a train in Spain, where God and the devil play chess for the souls of the dead. The most important thing that we can gather from this idea that there is no spot that God is not, is that there is no evil force in competition with God. God is all of it. That can really mess with your mind. because there are things that happen that just seem absolutely abhorrent. And this belief, this principle, implies and means that God is in that too. God is in all of life. God is in all of death. Ups, downs, pleasantness, unpleasantness, destruction, formation. It's all included. And what we can take to add some comfort to what might feel like a discomforting thought is that there is order at work at all times in God. As my mom often says, it's all good. Everything that happens has the potential for good and beauty to be the outcome. So many times, things that have seemed chaotic and out of control and unbearable and just plain wrong, at the time have turned out to be turning points and tipping points for something new and beautiful to emerge. There is only one power, and in that one power is intelligence and order and mathematical beauty beyond our comprehension. If you have any doubt, look at the magnificence of the design of one single flower. Look at how the seed emerges and breaks through the darkness of the ground. Look at how its petals emerge gently and then arrange themselves perfectly to capture the light of the sun. Look at how a plant absorbs water to sustain its life and how it interacts with other plants and with bees to grow again. And then how the plant apparently dies, only to emerge again after a period of dormancy. It is brilliant. There is creative energy at work with intelligence and order all the time. The intelligence of life. And this one idea alone, to look at a flower and see the intelligence through the apparent chaos, through the apparent death, can help us to sustain our faith when we question, where is God in all this? There is no spot that God is not. And so this week, as you live your life, I encourage you to notice how often you label something as good or bad, how often you see things as being part of God and other things as being outside of God somehow. If you catch yourself doing that, see if you can reframe it. Reframe that idea using the thought that there is no spot that God is not. Using the image of a flower and the beauty and intelligence inherent in that simple, complicated, beautiful expression of life. Pay attention to the idea of My God is better than your God. Remind yourself that there is no favoritism and no need to bargain with God. Remind yourself that pleasantness and unpleasantness are all included. And trust that there is an intelligence greater than we can understand at work in our lives and in the lives of the people around us and in the lives of our planet and the life that is all our universe. There is one universal power, no spot that God is not. One universal power, no spot that God is not. I bless you.